Welcome to this explainer. We often treat charisma like it's some sort of mystical superpower, right? Like you're either magically born with this glowing aura or you're just out of luck. Well, actually, scratch that. Today, we're diving into the hard evidence. We are going to systematically deconstruct extreme likability into 5 highly actionable, completely evidence-based psychological habits. So get ready, because we're about to crack the code on how the most magnetic people literally operate.
I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever met that rare kind of person who just walks into a room full of complete strangers and instantly puts every single person at ease? They aren't desperately trying to be the center of attention. They're not the one shouting the loudest joke at the networking event. They just have this quiet, undeniable magnetic pull that makes you naturally gravitate right toward them. It looks totally effortless, doesn't it?
But here is where we really need to flip the script. It's a huge myth that extreme likability means being the loudest, the chattiest, or even the most conventionally attractive person in the room. Psychology tells us a completely different story. The reality? True magnetism is actually a collection of quiet, highly adaptive mental habits. It is not about dominating the physical space at all. It's entirely about how you mentally process that space and the people inside it.
So let's really get into this. Truly charismatic people are absolutely not out there performing some flawless image. The real psychological game changer here is that instead of hyping themselves up, they rely on these hidden emotional patterns. Patterns that prioritize the authenticity and, crucially, the emotional safety of whoever they're interacting with. They aren't trying to wow you with their resume. They are connecting with you on a deeply human level. And that creates an immediate, incredibly powerful psychological bond.
Okay, let's jump right into habit number 1, deep, active observation.
Now, this perfectly illustrates their golden rule. You know how a lot of people just constantly talk to fill the silence or chase some sort of validation? Well, highly likable folks do the exact opposite. They know that talking pushes information out, but listening pulls information in. They're basically acting like active emotional sponges, gathering data to genuinely understand you rather than just waiting around for their turn to speak.
And because they pick their words so carefully, they are completely fine with awkward pauses. They are actively watching your behavior and your reactions. Because of that, their presence just feels totally different. As the saying goes, listening builds a much stronger presence than speaking. When someone is genuinely comfortable sitting in silence with you, it signals this immense, quiet confidence that is just incredibly drawing.
Moving right along to habit number 2, emotional detail.
Truly charming people are almost always deep feelers. They are hyper-tuned to their emotional environment. I'm talking about naturally zeroing in on the tiny things, a slight shift in your tone of voice, a little wince when a certain topic comes up, or even just a sudden pause in the conversation. These are those fleeting little signals that most average people completely miss, mostly because they're usually too busy thinking about themselves. But because charismatic people are catching all these tiny details, they are able to truly emotionally invest in you. They're the ones who remember that hyper-specific coffee order you mentioned in passing last week, or they notice exactly when you're hesitating. By reflecting that level of care back to you, they make the connection feel deeply meaningful. It's exactly why you walk away from them feeling like, wow, someone actually gets me.
That brings us to number 3, pure presence over performance.
This one is absolutely massive right now. In a world that is totally obsessed with documenting every single second for external validation, these individuals prioritize real participation over documentation. They actively refuse to turn a natural, organic social interaction into a staged photo op for an audience that isn't even in the room. They just want to be exactly where their feet are.
They value authentic immersion so highly, in fact, that valuing immersion more than preservation is practically their motto. When you talk to them, you literally have their complete undivided attention. Think about how rare that is today. No glancing at phones, no leaving the screen face up on the dinner table, no scanning the room over your shoulder. That level of total immersion makes you feel instantly valued and deeply respected.
All right, let's hit number 4, the confidence to be wrong.
Now, to really grasp this, we first have to look at its total opposite, which is responsibility avoidance. You've probably seen this before. Emotionally immature people really struggle to separate feedback from their actual identity. They view even the tiniest disagreements as massive personal attacks, and they immediately shift the blame just to protect their fragile egos. Honestly, it is just exhausting to be around.
But in stark contrast, highly likable people look at mistakes, awkward moments, and disagreements purely as feedback, never as absolute failures. And because they don't get instantly defensive, they create this incredibly safe, relaxed vibe. You never ever feel like you have to walk on eggshells around them because you know for sure that if an issue comes up, it's going to be handled with grace instead of a defensive blow-up.
And finally, we arrive at number 5, authentic, independent energy. This is super interesting. Research actually shows that people who grew up feeling a bit different or who had to adapt to spaces that weren't built for them often develop what psychologists call cognitive flexibility. Basically, it's the ability to easily adapt and think totally outside the box. They literally had to learn how to read a room to adjust socially, and man, does that turn into an absolute superpower in adulthood.
Let's trace how this actually plays out in real time. Because they spent all those years adapting, they built up off-the-charts self-awareness. Over time, they basically stopped worrying about fitting perfectly into rigid social boxes and got way more comfortable just following their own true preferences. And that independent, self-assured energy, it is wildly attractive. As humans, we just instinctually trust someone who is that genuinely comfortable in their own skin.
So, bringing it all together, our core thesis for this explainer is this. The absolute secret to making people like you is not trying to perform perfectly. It is letting go of that exhausting need for constant external validation. It's about closely observing the people around you, offering them real emotional safety, and taking true ownership of your interactions. That is exactly how you build connections on a rock-solid, honest foundation.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with one final, provocative thought. Knowing all of this, how will you step away from performing and start being truly, unapologetically present in your very next conversation? Think about it, and maybe try taking just one of these psychological habits out for a spin today.